I can only answer it from the household perspective right now. And if you consider the shall we say, the amount of the, shall we say, household debt to income ratio is actually extremely high. It's about approximately 72.8% of household income is tied up in debt. And if you were to take a look at our savings level, the savings have gone up only to approximately about 0.7% in the moment, from about minus zero point 0.5 in January of 2020. So, but at the same time, if you take a look at the number of businesses that have filed recently over this year for bankruptcy, the number has more than doubled. So, or in the moment, government's debt to GDP is extremely high. We're sitting at about 62.2% of debt to GDP as of the end of last year. But all this said, business confidence is actually showing a slightly positive indicator. So looking at households would imply that we would be assuming that the economy is going to be recovering and that we're going to be able to, shall we say, households are going to find themselves in a better financial position. However, I doubt this actually happening. In the sense that households are, as it is, taking a large chunk of the debt burden as it is, and household distribution, or well, should we say distribution of income to households within the households is under severe threat. So what happens is if the tax burden goes up, we're going to be taking away from other, shall we say, other disposable incomes within the household, for example, food. And we've seen that food price inflation has been approximately 6%, which is again double that of the overall CPI inflation. Yeah. So at this particular point, I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's a wonder indeed, Prof, whether that might actually push the envelope in as far as this issue of boycotting paying taxes. Where might then government look at cutting wastage in order for it to fund this vaccine rollout?
Any form of positive spending in the economy is good spending, as long as it sort of like filters back into the economy through a multiplier process. So what we're looking at is if government could increase spending, for example, in shall we say, social benefits, which households desperately need, unemployment benefits, which we need, pensions, which we definitely need. All of these spendings are good. Finding areas to cut back becomes very, very difficult, because if you take out of one sector, you're going to be impacting on another. Or shall we say, we try and stimulate one sector, we may impact on another. And I don't believe that this is actually the best route we could be taking.
Yeah. Might government be encouraged, if you like, to look at possibly cutting the money that is wasted by the cash-guzzling state-owned enterprises in order to meet some of its obligations? I mean, people still going on about the amount of money that is being poured towards SAA, and some people suggesting that it actually is money going after bad, because this airline might not even come back.
Short-term benefits, long-term gains. This is really what we need to focus on. I believe that the argument, funding the coronavirus and shall we say taking money from state-owned enterprises could be a bit of a sort of, shall we say, is a very unstable kind of argument. On the one side, we do need our state-owned enterprises to be supported. They create a number of jobs. They protect the markets in a number of different ways. And yes, across the world, many of the known state-owned enterprises have cost governments a fortune in the past. So getting rid of state-owned enterprises, I'm not sure is the best solution, because in the long term, they may impact us on us negatively.
Finally, Prof, today we are looking to the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee. Suggestions are that data shows that inflation is at its all-time low in the country. Might this be an opportunity for Lesetja Kganyago to cut perhaps 25 basis points for you and I, who probably are still paying their mortgages?
That would be absolutely wonderful, and actually, I could potentially see that happening. However, I think the government is going to be a little bit more reserved given the nature of the, shall we say, the reduction in inflation that we're experiencing in South Africa. Much of it is based on what is actually happening globally around the world, and obviously that's impacting on spending, consumer costs. The rand has briefly strengthened against the euro and the dollar, and so we will actually see, in a sense, it will absolutely impact on costs of production, and we can see the ABSA PMI index is over the 50% mark, which means, that the economy could be seeing growth. If we were to cut back on interest rates, it would be a huge stimulus package for our economy. But I think our government will still remain a little bit more conservative in that decision.
Yeah, finally, Prof. I promise I'm letting you go now. We know that February, that's the month that Tito Mboweni delivers his budget speech. Any surprise packages you might think he might have up his sleeve, or might it be a I think someone wrote at the weekend that it's probably going to be a pencil budget speech. I'm not sure what the connotation is there, that he might say this today and tomorrow it changes completely because of this pandemic we face.
Okay, apart from the usual syntaxes that we were going to be confronted with, I would actually like to see a little bit more emphasis on social security grants and spending on the expanded public works program. We'd like to actually see initiatives on sort of expansionary fiscal policy. So we may see more government spending coming out in certain sectors. I doubt very much that government's going to apply a restrictive monetary policy. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. I doubt we're going to apply a restrictive fiscal policy to the economy. We will actually see a huge, I think there's got to be a stimulus initiative and a drive to help South Africa recover with the rest of the world. And I think our finance minister is well aware of the benefits and the necessity of a very expansionary fiscal policy right now.
Right. Professor Peter Bauer.